was a fool, but no longer. And now I awake. Now I can begin to bring an end to this parasitic, cyclical life of life that comes back to what knows what.
I only want to remember. I
Must. I have come here. How? Who was Herias? And there it was. A memory. Merely a fragment, but there are the strings leading away to some faint story beyond it. Let's open it.
Dhove watched as Herias pulled open files. The keys danced under fingers and clicked rhythmically, following them by prompts faster than he could read. They opened and closed within seconds.
There's some script here we can decipher.
Fragment 1, God Mind. Loading.
I know now that I could enter in and out of a mind. But how could I have forgotten? I wasn't just one life, I was countless. Yes, I see it now. Many lives lived, one after the other. I witnessed the beginning and the end of man. I was always there. But was I consciousness, an intellect woven into some shared human stream, shaped to man? Or did I grow within him like a seed? So many places, so many lives, and yet I can recall it all now. Yes, I can see it. I was there. I felt it in those end times. Days remembered as a quiet descent into the shadow. So unassuming, so fragile, so hidden. But when the plague came, when it fragmented and shattered mankind, it hurled us back into the darkness where we began, the dark ages where we belonged. Let history forget us, let time erase us, but it would not, it could not. And so, man rose again like a cancer, returning stronger, more defiant, and I was left to carry the truth. My story will tell. My life was given to be saved, and yet damned to serve. A slave clothed in divine flesh.
Dhove, before we go in, this being, your creator, I have but one question for you. Is he really a god, or is he just a man?
What?
You just need to wake up. Wake up, Dhove.
It felt like a dream, but I was there. I swear I saw it happen. It began without explanation, no crescendo, no finality. And as all things do, it was born from the quiet and burst into light. But not so dramatic as that, for real life tends to not show its hand, not let on to its plan, not until it's too late. For it acts of its own accord, and you will always find yourself on the receiving end, completely unaware, but never surprised. It was a normal day, and there I was with my wife. We were being driven by my mother-in-law, and on our way to that craft show. How could I have guessed it would be the last normal day on Earth? No, I never could have guessed. I was along for the ride, as we all are. But the end of the world? Not on my mind. I was far too fixed on the world passing outside my window there. I took the back seat in the hopes of allowing my wife and her mother to discuss whatever they wished to discuss, mothers and daughters being as they are, best friends. I knew I was there to listen, always was, and I accepted that. In fact, I took to just listening, which is what I did best. I listened and thought. That's it, really. I always believed I was there only as a support character in the story of my life. There was main character syndrome. Well, I had sidekick energy. Never really lived the life I wanted, just the one that was needed for whomever was in the line of sight. I looked out the fogged-over window at passing trees and homes I would never be able to own. The beautiful neighborhoods outside the city had the last vestige of old America about them. The last time it was truly good to be alive. This I told myself, but I didn't truly know what the hell that even meant. Probably something I'd heard once or twice before.
Was that the road back there?
The day was pleasant indeed,
No,
a beautiful
just-
spring
honey,
day.
keep going, just
Yet
keep
truth be
going.
told, there was a
Just a couple miles
stillness
out.
lingering behind that beauty. Some foul wind swept in from the west, and from behind those chilling reliefs of gust, they soothed me, yes, but gave me a chill like no other. One that struck me as frightful, though the words never found my lips. Nothing said, but always felt. Still, I ignored it, for the colors coming back to the world and the great reawakening was well on its way. Springtime was here once again. All manner of folk on their lawns planting and redding their lawns for the delicate care they so truly needed. Yet again there was something strange in the quiet there, something far off in the distance. Was it in my mind or the world around me? Well, all I could say was I was under its sway. Though I did not pay much heed to it, I only remarked to my wife before we left that I felt uneasy about some obscure feeling, one I could not trace but knew its demanding presence. It was nothing more than that. But when acted out of their natural accord, well, that should have been my first clue that this cosmic event was finally playing out, hiding behind every tree. And all that cast its shadow was that very darkness growing in plain sight. But instead I listened to her and paid no heed to it. After all, she had always been right before. Why wouldn't it have been the machinations of my mind?
Well, I heard Tammy.
I listened to my wife talk to her mother, as I
Your
said,
sister
and
Jen
sat quietly.
was gonna have
At this point, we had come up close to that fabled craft show that was set in the calendar for months.
Well, she's always making
What would I
involved with
find
them.
there of interest? Well, I could not say. But suffice to say, I went because it brought my wife joy. And truth be told, that was all that really mattered to me then. Always was to that point. If it was not already clear, I most definitely was in the back seat of my own life. Now, this could have been an ordinary trip, yet there was something different. Something out of this timeline. For as we were passing through what appeared to be a college campus, there skirting around us was this red truck full of teenagers. They passed us with great speed and almost hit a few girls on the crosswalk. It was a very close call, but what was strange was my mother-in-law's reaction. We braked suddenly and she began to scream and curse at them at the top of her lungs. I swore I have never seen the woman emote so much in all the years that I had known her. Now, to someone else, this might have been passed off as a mere situation, though extreme in its own right, as in the realm of normality. A normal response to events that brought about a great fright. After all, when life is threatened to be snuffed out and we are present to witness, well, most folk react with visceral responses. And how else would a woman react? Was she to stay emotionless and silent? Well, no, but it was her raging anger that truly gave me fright. As if these events triggered a loose memory and her baser instincts took over. Very animalistic. Though soon enough, she began to break down. And in that, she turned to her daughter to say, "I hope you never become like me. God, I hope you never turn into what I have become." There she wept for a few moments. In that stillness, Kelsey, my wife, took to comforting her. Across the dividing arm rest she soothed her mother with tears in her eyes. But like the armrest, it divided them in an awkward moment I took to watching with morbid curiosity. Such a visceral display I could not help but feeling a giddiness inside. Now, I know that sounds strange, but I felt like, finally, something real. Some real human emotions, instead of us pretending we're okay. But nonetheless, it was stark. I was not truly in touch with myself to realize how difficult it really was to be there. Still, it was more emotion than I had ever seen from the woman in the 10+ years she was in my life. Because let's be honest, to know Luann was to know Valium incarnate. Her expressions were muted at best. Her frail being was not capable of such fits of outbursts. She, as always, was calm and expressionless. And she spoke so incredibly quietly. Not much in the way of high emotions, as I have called it. You know what I mean, right? Those folk with loud personalities? Well, she would never have reached such a height. Emotions that I was used to with my family, though. The yelling, sadness born out loud, well, it was not in the repertoire of Luann. Now, this might seem like nothing, a mere moment, though out of the sense of normal, but not too dramatic as I'm making it out to be. Well, it was that first moment of infection. I know this now. That moment where you think, am I getting sick? Yet try and pass it off as if you're fine. Yet later you know, man, I should have taken that emergency powder just then. As I have said, this event would massively dictate the rest of the day, for it was the last day in which the world would be as you know it, and as I knew it. Because later that day, I began to watch it all fall apart. And this moment opened my eyes to the fact that not all was kept together, as I took it for granted before. The glue was not as binding as I believed it to be. That veneer of civilization was quite thinner than I wanted to believe. A warning shot before the great fall. I took to calling it later in my life. For the longer my story goes, the more you will begin to realize how a world could fall into ruin, and how subtle that change really can be. Momentous for sure, for it falls into ruin slowly and methodically, quiet and slow over time. Decade after decade, it slowly crumbles out of the blue. Like when the Twin Towers fell back when I was a kid. When you thought about it, you knew it was coming. How? You could not say, but you knew they would fall. Even if it defied all you could understand about the physical world, still, they fell. And we were all the more shocked when they did. It was bound to happen. We willed it. We, in some small way, asked for it, begged for it, and it came. And with a sudden shock, they went. And we were shocked. How could it have happened? What forces were at work to see such ruin? Well, I'm going to tell you. And it's a lot closer to home than you could ever imagine. And you were always in control of more than you will ever accept. But anyway, enough with the distant past. Let me tell you what came next. There you will truly see how the world can fall, with a quiet tremor before the great quake. Dhove leaned back for a moment, watching the words stand there before him. To feel with such ease that the world was coming to an end, to know deep down there was something wrong, was frightening to think about. Letting out a huff, he turned to the guide. At what cost would it have been, though? To relinquish that power, to walk from the ideas that stormed throughout his thoughts, to allow his mind to be at ease, instead of turmoil and struggle that, like a slog, he carried into the end of his life. To feel so much but hold it back that hard.
These are questions, Dhove,
Answered the guide.
that can haunt someone. But you yourself know well how living full of regret and, dare I say, fear can cloud your judgment.
Dhove answered. It's very much like being aware of the pointlessness of it all. One minute you play along and you feel completely fine. The next you begin to question all that you have done, how you have arrived where you are, and what the point truly is. To notice it all, to see the threads unraveling, though choosing not to touch it, not to aid in its unraveling. Instead, I only looked on. But the end of the world? That's a frightening prospect indeed.
Yet here you are, Dhove, a man who has seen his own world come to an end as well. A world you helped forge with Feast, now standing behind you as the end. like storm clouds in the distance, waver out ahead.
Herias began to speak in answer to Dhove.
I chose to stop my hand from committing what crime was born within me, and it cost me. Oh, it had cost me so dearly, for all would be ripped from my idle hands. All that I treasured, all that I coveted, and held with such a tight grip. Yet how could I have known? For was it my own hand, or some other? These questions, these never-ending questions poured from me without resolve. Oh, I'm sure in seeing it that way was the downfall of my very being.
You feel this collapse of your world was of your own doing? You who fled from your people? You who were countless lives in the hearts of man? Could you control the fall? Asked Dhove suddenly.
Yes, for I could not imagine a world lost of my soul, one that kept it on a course, even after I was gone from it. For I could not believe in being gone. Truly I could not. Can't you understand that battle that I had within? How I tormented my very being? I was at war, just like the rest of the world. War on self. It was so obvious. I sought it out, and yet there was no reprieve. It was just layer upon layer of that damn cake, that reality wrapped itself in our very mortality. And eventually, I had to run, to hide away, and be alone once again. But I had to see what was to become of that place. I was damn curious, and it cost me. But there we were, always right where we needed to be. And flowing inside of me was that memory now lost. To see the beginning of that end there, to watch it come and take my sight.
Stop.
I did not admit it. I did not want to believe it. Yet in some way, in my heart, I sought it out. I made it so. I called out to it in the hopes to break me from that rotted old bridge of turmoil, one in which my feet would find, knowing damn well it would swallow me up, but still did my feet find it. God, I hoped, I prayed it would take me and pull me away. Damn the world, damn the mind. I want it to cease. I want it to stop. Take this world from me. I can bear it no longer, I would shout. But then, quiet, nothingness would envelop me. And in that stillness, the answer was always mired in my own breathing. A constant reminder it would not continue to do so till I drew my last breath. And even that was not a reprieve, for what comes after? And I would go down this path, time after time, down the same road, one that was carved by my very hands, by my very feet trod. Back and forth, I was tired of its unnatural grip upon me. Frankly, I grew tired, aimless. Far outstretched was my goal, though I'm sure I would never have known it then. Yet we will press on. Yes, let us continue the story of my downfall, mine, and the world's.
I just don't understand, said Dhove. A world falling to ruin. One that he lived in, but yet said he was in control of? You asked me to say, is he a god? Is he truly a god? And it sounds like he believes he is so, but it sounds like he's not. It's confusing.
Confusing, yes. But what is man? What is the world he lives in? Is it one that controls him, or he who controls it? You ask, is he a man acting as a god, or a god acting as a man? These, Dhove, are the questions that you have to come to understand. You have to remember again.
Now I will spare you the details of our trip, and I will take you back home, where the story must tell itself. Yet I will say, my mother-in-law acted quite distracted the whole time, and no matter how my wife would seek to pull her from her stupor, only did it find her again. Now I worried for my wife, who had never really seen her mother behave as such. It was as if she was lost in the deepest part of herself, one that she had not truly faced in her waking days. Though that turmoil was written upon her, it was within her eyes, and her daughter could see something clouded in those eyes. And as much as she reached out to pull at her mother, only was she met by that humble beckoning to relinquish her care. So suffice to say, I was very distracted by all this surge of emotions. I must say it truly took my being, far more than I could ever say, more than any human would ever understand. Though as usual, I chose not to speak of such things. We made it home, and so we brought in all that which was purchased by the ladies. More things for the home, I told myself. While we were winding down, I could hear something outside, in the back near my shed that looked out to the river. The sun was falling, so I only took it to be some neighborhood cat. I chose to think so, at least. I looked out the back window, and as I turned past the laundry room, where our back door was located, I found the back door was unlocked. Strange, I thought. I made sure to quickly lock it, for if the women found out, it would stir a great panic in them. I swore that I locked it, however, though as my hand found the top lock, I dare not tell them of it. I decided then it was due to my own carelessness and thought nothing more of it, for what had given those women a fright, those women being as they are, so naturally afraid. Now some time went by, and I swore I could hear the same sound near the shed again. So again, I went back to peer through the window and saw nothing once again. Though as I walked past the back door, it was unlocked. How could that have been? Could I have misremembered? Was I losing it? I swore I had just locked it, but doubt crept into my thoughts and lay itself among my feelings. Perhaps my memory is just slipping, thought I. So once again I locked the door and walked away. But as I passed the window, I saw what looked to be a man messing with my lawnmower. He must have pulled it from the shed, but I could not tell just what he was doing to it. Kneeling down, he examined it, and even began to pull it apart slightly. What was he after? I could not tell, but honestly, in that moment I thought it was Ed, my father-in-law and stepfather to my wife. Yet I thought, why would he be here? I didn't know he was coming by as well. Also, what in the hell was he trying to do with my lawnmower? It was the first one I ever purchased, goddammit. Checking first, I went to my wife and asked if Ed was coming over or something, but she and her own mother were unaware of his coming by. In fact, he was not free at all that day. Then it dawned on me that something wasn't right. I hastily walked back to the window again, and sure enough, it was indeed a stranger. Somehow in the twilight, I didn't believe it could have been. Not sure why my mind wanted to believe it was Ed, but as the truth looked back unto me, I saw the face of an older black guy, one that I had never seen before. And when his eyes met mine, they pulled away quickly. There was something very off about him. The way he moved, it was unnerving and, quite frankly, frightening. I called out for my wife to call the police. When she cried out, "Why? What's wrong?" I yelled again, "Kelsey, just do it, now." To which I then went out to confront the odd-acting man. I swung the door open, and my first shouts were, "Hey man, what the fuck are you doing?" Good start, I thought. Honest and to the point. Get that right out of the way. Yet he only dropped one of the wheels he must have pulled off and began to gingerly walk the other way. There I gave chase to him, but not at a run, no. We only walked. "What the fuck are you doing, dude?" I followed him, puzzled, "What's wrong with you?" as he walked very awkwardly away, as if he was trying to convey all was right and normal. It was very autistic from Frank. "Dude, what the fuck?" And we awkwardly moved through the neighborhood. As I did, I shouted at him to stop. "Dude, stop!" Yet he continued to keep his distance from me. Not running, but walking gingerly. "What the fuck were you doing to my lawnmower?" Now, you might be wondering why I decided to go after him in the first place. Well, I don't rightly know, but it felt good in the moment. I was in pursuit. It was like a game. I hate to admit it, but I would be remiss if I didn't say so. It was so unreal, and as the events unfolded, I could hardly believe how one could get so swept up in their emotions that they would throw away a stable, normal life to satiate such carnal desires. Now, eventually, my neighbors would pop out and see the strange chase.
What the fuck's going on?
So I used that opportunity to yell at them
Hey,
to call
call
the
the
police
cops,
as
dude.
well.
Seriously. Honey, just
Again,
do it.
I don't
I'm
know
not
what
fucking
set
around.
me to
What's
do
going
such a
on?
thing over a lawnmower, but deep down, I knew there was something off about him. Something I did not like. Something I wanted captured and gone.
Dude, I don't get your fucking
It was more than his being not from the neighborhood. It was primal. It was fear.
I don't call the law.
So there was this added sense of him being where he did not belong. Yet, I believe at that time, because of his demeanor, I thought him on drugs. Though I could not say what kind, I could only think his altered state was threatening enough if it provoked any further. And even knowing this, I still pursued. At any rate, I got to the end of our street. Must have been a 10-minute walk, when two heavy-set men poked their heads out of their home, and like a shot, they took off after the crazy guy. I watched them pull that man in. And it was within that moment I saw so much fear upon his face. Something in me felt horrible just then. Perhaps he might have been autistic. I don't know. I felt horrible when I saw the guy being thrashed around like that. He did not even fight back.
Get him in here.
He only looked at me
Please.
in terror.
Oh,
It was at this time that I began to realize something was not right. Something in those other guys' demeanor was seemingly turned to 10. For they pulled the man in their house, and soon enough, I could hear violent screams and the sound of breaking furniture,
What the fuck's going on?
crashing bodies, and shouts of dismay. Just as the sounds grew to a crescendo, and as all the neighbors poured out to bear witness,
Holy
4
shit.
police cars rolled in with their sirens blaring, and soon enough, the cops began to pour out,
Fucking A,
guns
dude.
drawn and towards me. This is getting too intense too quickly, I thought. I then shouted, "Check the house! Check the house!" In their eyes, I saw palpable fear, shock, and awe covering them. Their body language was clumsy and unnerving. Fight or flight had truly taken them. "Check the house! In the house!" I pointed out. For whatever reason, I ran with them towards the heinous sounds, and as we approached, I saw the most gruesome sight I had ever witnessed up to that point. The black guy who was being pulled apart and into pieces. I don't even know how they managed to do it, but they were in a mad frenzy, screaming, agonizing sounds of death ran from his mouth. It was like watching rabid dogs destroy their prey. But the hands of men? That was a sight a single person thought they would never bear witness to. The 2 men somehow turned into 4, then 5 at a time.
Hold the
And
motherfucker
in
down. Get him on
time,
the ground there.
in
Now,
a
what
frenzied state,
What's wrong with you, dude?
they
Stop.
killed that man. Screaming and shouting at one another like a group of vicious dogs, they seemed unstoppable. The officers yelled for them to stop over and over again, but there was no relent. Eventually, the frenzied men turned to the officers. I flew away when I heard the roar of guns open up. It turned quickly into a war zone. What haunts me even more was when I turned around, I saw the bullets only slow them down as they advanced towards the officers. It quickly turned into a bloodbath, and somehow I was not seen in the fray. In a matter of moments, the whole neighborhood erupted into madness. People attacking their neighbors, cops shooting other cops, and it was madness. There was death and maimery all around me. The cavalcade of death and dying, screaming and agonizing bellows ran out. The sight of the elders being ripped apart, savage fists raining down on caved-in faces, it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. I quickly ran home to lock in my wife and her mother. Do you see what I mean? It all came so quickly. I could never have predicted this would come, and yet I called for this. I knew this. I knew what we were capable of, and like a spell, the veil was lifted by some unseen hand to show man's true intent. his true desires. Yet it was in that moment where all finality fell off. The chain is now off the gear. Yet when my mother-in-law acted out of character, that was what I meant when I said the moment had begun in the smallest of ways. It began with her, and sadly, it ended with her as well. For when I ran inside my home, I found my wife and her mother tearing each other apart. I stood there in shock. I tried to stop them, but it was far too gone. Like a woman being torn apart by wild dogs, I could not have stopped them with my hands. But what would have been the point? Not knowing what to do, I merely ran. That's it. And I'll never forgive myself for the rest of my days. But I ran until all memory fell away. All my life vanished right before me. And soon enough, it was as if my higher being pulled away from my body. An event I now know was called the cut from God. Where mankind slowly walked away from the sway of the Creator. And the newborn consciousness birthed violent death and destruction as the software reset. It ate itself. And like a radio, we eventually lost the signal, and slowly darkness consumed the lands of man. A revolt to man's baser instinct, their animal sense, the world around them too sophisticated now, too jarring to such a frightened, terrified little creature. It was like watching animals turn on each other, litter mates who turn on each other in the smallest moment of fear, killing all around them with ease, only to come back in a state of norm. Though there was no return now, and over the years man would fall into the animal ways. Society would crumble, and as I would discover, what I thought was the consciousness of Herias, was the eyes of God. God consciousness. God was all sight. He was all I saw, and when I ran from man, well, that began their fall back into darkness. All I can remember before I left was one thing, one last fragmented memory, one I cannot trace its origin from. There I stood with a heart in my hands. Whose heart was it? I could not say, but I knew I must destroy it. Why? Well, it starts over again. That path to find man again, from the bottom I fell, and back to the top I must go, back to the heart. My hands trembled as I held it, my heart still pulsing, warm, red. Whose heart? I don't know. But I feel as if the whole universe is asking me to crush it, or to keep it safe. Then a faint voice echoed like thunder from nowhere. Don't let go! Don't let go! I dropped the heart. Was it real? Was any of it real? A pulse echoed through the ship's walls. Dhove's chest tightened. Distorted visions flashed rapidly of a man holding a heart. There it lingered. He swore he could feel it beating away within his hands. Can you please stop?
Yeah. Oh. Alright, sorry.
Where it then echoed along with Herias' massive pulse beats in the distance. He could still hear himself shout into the memory, "Don't let go!" Still reeling, he fought for composure while lights flickered, and a metallic moan rang throughout the vessel. Then all grew silent, falling into sounds of beeps and whirrings of the great computer before him. A contrast heightened, taking him from thought and burdensome vision. He listened to the music of beeps and stutters. It brought a calm that passed over him. And with a wave of his hand, he found peace inside once again. Dhove stared at the script on the screen. The glow from the console illuminated his face, dancing characters upon his cheeks.
Could you feel the consequences just then?
The guide suddenly cut through his concentration. Dhove jumped with a start. The guide continued.
Could you feel its pulse through the ship once again? You are clearly connected to this story, Dhove. Keep digging deeper.
Nodding, he replayed what he could recall from the memory again in his mind. For a few moments he added up what he could surmise. He thought of Herias the man, one who had a sense of isolation about him, a man in the back seat of his own life before the fall, a life that had been lived with relative ease, or so it appeared that way. Then to watch it all fall away with such relative ease, by the hand of another, such a violent rise to a normal existence. He was so disconnected already. He watched the dancing cursor on the cathode screen. His hand wavered over the controls as he searched for another file to access, something he could extract or examine. But he felt disconnected, like a dreamer, a man who saw his very own reality, acted externally. And this reality was seeking him, as if life outside sought to get in, seeking some part of him that he would not allow to be found. Herias already broke away from man long before the fall he described. This surely took God from him. Dhove felt the cool brush of the guide's robes against his cheek as his voice whispered,
Is God within the connected consciousness of man? Do you believe, as Herias states here, that when God broke from man, his self-exile, this caused these events to come? Could Herias himself have some part to play in the doom of man? Is he the God he claimed to be as well? Or, which leads to the bigger question, Dhove, did it really happen? Or was it merely a dream? A psychosis?
a startling question that sent shivers down his spine. Dhove leaned back to the throne of thought, resting his chin over his laced fingers in a contemplative manner. He dwelled. Dhove could not help but wonder whether his own certainty was merely another form of madness, another confusing layer. Could I truly be nestled inside my own creator, playing with his life, watching a man lose himself? A man driven so much a state? Was any of it real? Was he what he claimed to be, a god in the mind of a man? One that hides in consciousness? Doubt filled him further, until around himself Dhove could feel the massive vessel stirring.
And on that one end.
New electronics kicked on and flickered away as the massive voice shook and vibrated. A new text popped up on the screen. It read,
Who was that? What was that place? The one in which I inhabited. I had a life. I had a wife. And now swept away. All thrown to ruin. Yet I can feel it now. I can remember the fear that coursed through me, watching my whole world fall apart and fade into black. Tossed into that shade of wickedness, the stain of my pain led me to forget once again. Though not forget, but to walk away. I am no longer the same. For it was all taken from me as my eyes finally fell that last time.
I want to sing.
Yet who was that man? That man who stood and waited for reprieve? Was it me? Could it have been me? My life now my own, I float from the ever-present sensation that was the waking life. Yet it was stripped away. I find myself here and now. Though, am I the same man as I was? Pulled from that moment and thrust into this waiting place, this purgatory?
Dhove could not know the answer to such a question. Yet the pain of Herias tore at him. He sat quietly while pain and woe tossed about like a ship on the ocean. He read on.
No. And yet, yes.
Yeah.
For my body is no longer one I can recognize. But my mind is still clearly my own. I'm missing something. distant memory. As I live in this new body, I accept my new fate. But this memory of the beginning, was it true? And would more memories come back to me? A shudder of an event, though not recognized as its own visage?
Isn't it visage?
I feel like I'm
Stop.
recalling a dream from youth that would come to pass in my adult life.
Just
Prophetic, yet distant.
hold on a minute, alright?
Isolated. Looking back, I now know I was meant to suffer. But this? It was as if all my life was ordained, all planned out and agreed upon. I made these events come and go. That life which Kelsey and her mother faded away. What replaced that now is recalling of something. Something I cannot trace. Something that spells out a warning. One that is difficult to interpret.
And that says interoperate, not
But
interpret.
come,
Please.
let us return to these memories of the past life. For they are so delicate in the hand, and when held, they threaten to fall into pieces if I'm not careful. These memories are more of a feeling, one that is held deep down, that is born from intuition, that gut feeling. And within that union of intuition and premonition, I would find the past speaking out to me. As this soul was letting its flavors rise. All that seasoned
Cooking reference, huh?
along the way.
Just let him
And with
do it.
this
Let him fucking get it
take
out.
two, this realization, I would find the past coming back to life once again. So as long as I remember, as long as I remain respectful of what had transpired and what drove me, for it was the dreams that are the stirring back to what is unexplainable. Yet only if you let it, only if you heed it. Always listen to the past, which is the roadmap of your true destiny. I will remember. I will remember again, Dhove.
Dhove panned over the scattered words of his opening mind. Eventually he found highlighted in his ramblings the word, isolated. Once he panned over it, he saw it was a link, one that took him to a new blank screen. Isolation, then scrawled across the screen. It appeared corrupted. Though glancing over the text, it felt out of place, a random access memory, shifted from its original order. Or so it would seem that way. And yet in Dhove's heart, he suddenly felt it was the right course of action. Though if the guide who hovered over his shoulder was right, then there was no telling if these were truly lived memories or fragments of some fever dream. Imagination. Still, there was a connection. That much he could tell. Woven together from the very different cloths. Dhove entered the corrupted memory, and Herias would once again speak.
But let me tell you of what would come next. After the death of that man called Herias, and the birth of him once again. And my whole life came and went with this new birth. One that I truly believe was real. One that was thrust into the new world of man. That dark age of evil once again triumphed on the hearts and souls of man. One that took this Herias and brought such fear in his heart would take all he knew and flee to the mountains. In isolation and fear. He and his followers would live and slowly die.